All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to talk about, some headlines around NFL training camp, um, with several different teams, some injury updates, things like that. So let's get into it. So, first team is the Carolina Panthers. So, their young receiver, first round rookie Xavier Legette, suffered a lower leg injury during practice. Sunday's practice. Now, x-rays were negative, but he'll undergo an MRI. The injury is unrelated to his previous hamstring injury, so we'll keep an eye on that. And that's someone that's looking to make an impact on this team. Again, being a first-round receiver, they added him. They also added Deontay Johnson. So they're hoping with those two, and of course with the offensive line, adding to that this offseason, and also drafting Jonathan Brooks as well, the rookie running back. They're hoping that with all of this, that Bryce Young can have a better season. And also, they did, they have a new head coach in Dave Canales, who did a nice job with Tampa Bay, helping out Baker Mayfield revitalize his career in Tampa. So they're hoping that they can get similar results to that with Bryce Young. Now, I mean, the Panthers I really haven't talked about that much this offseason, but when I'm kind of expecting another losing season, but you're really hoping for that big jump for Bryce Young in year two, because last year was pretty rough. Now, it was not all his fault, but they're hoping that he can make a big leap, because if not, the Panthers got a problem on their hands. But they at least have made moves to try to put him in a better situation. Also, another injury with the Panthers. Now, I did see that Jonathan Brooks, their rookie running back who I brought up, it seems like he's going to make his return around week 3, week 4 during the season, recovering from his ACL injury. So there's that. But also, backup quarterback Andy Dalton has a quad injury. They signed Jake Luton, who made some starts with Jacksonville back during COVID. I think it was. I know he definitely made one start. I don't know. He might have made a couple, but he was with Jacksonville. I remember that. He's been with 7 NFL teams and had multiple stints on Carolina's practice squad in 2023. So they bring him in while Andy Dalton recovers from his quad injury. Then we move on to the Browns. So Myles Garrett was not practicing, but he did participate in his first summer training camp practice. Did full-speed pass rushing drills after Friday's practice. So he's good to go. Elijah Moore is working through a concussion protocol, although it's not confirmed if he has a concussion with the Browns. So that's a couple things with the Browns. Justin Watson was injured. He returned to practice. Kadarius Toney is banged up. He was taking snaps out of the backfield. They're trying to, work him as a running back. So, we'll see what ends up happening there. But I just feel like at this point with Kadarius Toney, he's kind of just phasing himself out, because it's just last year. I mean, the drops were a problem, and did not play in the Super Bowl. Well, I don't. He didn't play in the playoffs at all. Like, he was. Right? I don't think he played in the playoffs at all. But either way, I mean, he didn't play in the Super Bowl. And the year before that, I mean, he had that big punt return against the Eagles that set him up, and he scored a touchdown in that Super Bowl against the Eagles. But it has not worked out in Kansas City. And I think, I mean, we'll see if anyone else picks him up, if the Chiefs were to move off of him. But, I mean, if it doesn't work out with the Chiefs, I mean, who's it going to work out with then? But that's one of the problems with him, is he has not been able to stay healthy. So he's banged up. Nick Bolton, one of their linebackers, is banged up. Justin Reed as well. But again, I mean, we still got ways to go. So, but that's just what happens. Guys got to get a little banged up. John Gruden actually also made an appearance at one of their practices. He's been out of the league since 2021 because of, off the field stuff. The Raiders had to let him go. I'm not going to get into it, but he was at practice for the Chiefs. Also, moving on with the Chargers. So, Joey Bosa of the Chargers left Sunday's practice with a left hand or wrist injury. Has been limited to 14 games over the past 2 years due to injuries. He accepted a pay cut to stay with the Chargers this offseason. Yeah, that's a problem. And, when Joey Bosa's healthy, he can, he can take over a game. But, if you're not on the field, that just hurts your team. But he took a pay cut because he wanted to stay with the team. I mean, Khalil Mack is still with the Chargers as well. They still got guys on this defense, and but the defense was pretty bad last year. But you're hoping that with Harbaugh taking over, that the defense is a little better. So, yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised that. Well, I guess a little surprised that they would have kept these older guys on defense, as opposed to maybe trying to. I mean, Mike Williams, I was fine with them moving off of him, but I still think that the Chargers should have tried and kept Keenan Allen. Just so at least you have. I mean, I know Joshua Palmer's there, and I know Quinn Johnson's going into his second year, but Quinn Johnson was not very good last year. And, Joshua Palmer's kind of like a number 3 receiver. So, I mean, if you would have kept Keenan Allen, at least you would have had, your top guys still there with the younger guys that they brought in through the draft as well. But they decided to move off of the offensive guys and, keep the defensive guys. But you got to keep some guys on defense, even though the defense, like I said, was not very good last year. Actually, and another big injury, too. So Puka Nacua left Sunday's practice with a knee injury. He returned with a bag of ice around his knee. He did not participate further in practice. So, I didn't see anything that said he got carted off, but that's something to keep an eye on. I mean, last year he was unbelievable. I know I talked about him recently, when talking about the Rams. They say Cooper Kupp looks really good. So that's really encouraging. But now, of course, when you see that, now you see, Puka Nacua gets injured. So, yeah, that's not a good sign, but it doesn't seem like it's too serious. So, but that's just something that we'll have to keep an eye on. Rashid Shaheed of the Saints, he missed his second consecutive practice due to a hamstring injury. But it doesn't seem to be that major because Dennis Allen was saying he hopes that he could practice soon. So, he's kind of the number 2 receiver right now. I mean, you got Chris Olave and then, question marks. And, Shaheed, not only can he be a receiver, but, he's a guy that can return kicks as well. He could play a factor with those new kickoff rules. So that's another injury. Evan Neal is still injured at the moment due to his recovering from ankle surgery. But yeah, he'll be sidelined through the first preseason game. And, the Giants, obviously, they brought in a few offensive linemen now. They recently signed Greg Van Roten because Illuminor got hurt too. Jermaine Illuminor, who they also brought in. But, yeah, so Evan Neal is going to be out for that first preseason game. And, yeah, right now it's not looking like a good pick from Joe Shane with how his career has gone so far. With the Eagles, just, some minor injuries. Mekhi Becton, who they signed, he didn't practice, but he was dealing with an illness. Tyler Steen, the starting right guard, right now is sidelined due to an ankle injury. Paris Campbell, who they brought in, he's dealing with a groin. So, I mean, again, nothing, doesn't seem like major things going on there, but for the Steelers, though, Russell Wilson is back at practice. And, we still got to keep an eye. And Justin Fields looks good from what I'm seeing. So it's going to be interesting how that competition plays out between those two guys. And I've said all along, I think they should lean towards starting Russ. And then, if he doesn't play well, then you go to Fields. But if Justin Fields, shows that he could be the starter, then the Steelers could do that. They could say, you know what, he's going to start from day one. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. And then also, with the Commanders, the last thing I'll bring up, Jane Daniels will start the first preseason game for the Commanders. Expected to start over Marcus Mariota when they play Tampa in the regular season opener, which we all kind of figured that. But yeah, he will be playing. I think it was against the Jets. They're going to be opening up against for the preseason. So we'll get to see his first game action. So that's going to be exciting. That's going to be something that we'll have to talk about when we get to it, because we got a full slate of preseason games this week, which I'm excited about. That gives us more things to talk about, because we have 2 games. We got 2 games on Thursday. Yeah, I got 2 games on Thursday, 3 on Friday. Then we got a handful on Saturday, and then we have 2 on Sunday. So, yeah, I'm excited. I mean, again, it's preseason, and the starters are not going to be playing, or at least most of them are not going to be playing. But you know what? It's football, so I'm excited, because again, it's going to give us stuff to talk about. How certain players did. Like, we'll talk about Jaden Daniels' debut. We'll talk about that, and if some of the other rookie quarterbacks make their debut, we'll talk about it. There's going to be a lot to talk about, which I'm excited for. So before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCPodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we will talk about Justin Jefferson and the Vikings. How the Vikings are planning on managing Jefferson throughout training camp, and just talk about some comments that Jefferson had about the injury that he suffered last year, his hamstring injury. So that's what we'll get to when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.